The Witch Queen Collector's Editions have begun making their way into the homes of guardians across Earth, and today we are going to uncover some pretty insane mysteries. Things like groups of ghosts that worship the Hive, Ikora's struggles, the voice in the darkness, updates of Shaxx and Mara, hints at a character death, and tons more you won't want to miss. Our first tale here details a group of ghosts that are unpaired to guardians, meaning they don't have a guardian, and worship the Hive and the Books of Sorrow. Here are some paragraphs and lines I extracted from the Collector's Edition. These introverted ghosts spend a lot of time hovering in circles, philosophizing. The longer they've been away from people, sorry, human people, ghosts are people too, the less they care about hovering at head height or facing each other when they talk. After a few months, they'll just scatter around a space facing every which way, like they're each posing for a photo. When they're not talking, I get the feeling that they're just sensing, the same way they can divine the character of a long-dead corpse. Whatever you want to call that faculty, they're using it. These ghosts without guardians argue about two things. One is the exact nature of their connection to their undiscovered guardian. Is each ghost predestined to find one and exactly one soul to raise as a guardian? Or does each ghost have a taste, a set of preferences that many dead people might satisfy? Could a ghost potentially raise anyone? Does the choice of a partner lie within the ghost, or is it a mission assigned by the traveler? They also argue over how one should interact with their chosen guardian. Should ghosts accede to whatever their partner demands? Or is a ghost's relationship with a guardian a negotiated bond between equals and codependents? Heavy stuff. But I guess that's the same argument people always have about their relationships. Is there such a thing as true love, or just the love we decide we're going to make work? I noticed one command thread among these unpaired ghosts. They really like the Books of Sorrow. Ever since Eris deciphered the calcified fragments, Guardians have been fascinated by the history of the Hive. But these ghosts, I don't think it's fascination, I think it's pity. They see the Hive as an exploited underclass, for goodness sake, victims of a cosmic parasite that tricked the poor krill into eternal slavery. No wonder why they haven't found their guardians. They don't want to help anyone kill the Hive. But this is troubling, isn't it? Because if ghosts can decide that they have moral qualms with raising guardians, and if they convince other ghosts to follow suit, we're going to need a program of counter-persuasion. We'll have to start keeping an eye on the morale and loyalty of our own ghosts. This way lies a terrible future. So that is interesting to talk about. In the past, we speculated about how Savathun obtains the light and how she gets Hive ghosts herself. So is it from a group like these ghosts, although they don't really want to find a guardian, or was it somewhere else? It's interesting they note this in the lore though, and it's kind of actually pretty alarming. These ghosts were created to bring guardians to life, and they're deciding not to do that and to worship the Hive. Throughout the Collector's Edition lorebook, Ikora Rey is struggling with finding her true self. The lorebook details different sections of books she wrote, like Find Thyself, Destroy Thyself, and so on, which is essentially a guide to knowing yourself and becoming a better version of who you are. So here's a couple of lines involving that information. So apparently Ikora made a wish with an Ahamkara to find a teacher long ago. She wanted to find herself, to show her true power. The Ahamkara Azarim defeated Ikora and she succumbed to the creature's power. It could make her desires real and twist the wish around if it wanted to. Wei Ning here actually punched Ikora in the head, giving her a concussion to stop this wish. Ikora battled many different Ahamkara during the Great Hunt, including Madhir, who had changed her into someone that the Ahamkara could not tempt. Here's an interesting fact on how fire teams were formed. So after the Great Ahamkara Hunt, a bunch of guardians were sent in and fighting Crota. The Sword Logic saw the weakness in many guardians dispatched here during the battle. Thus, the size of the fire team then became 3 members. Ikora says, Today we fight in fire teams of 3, a triangle, the basic shape of trust, the strongest shape in nature. So we mentioned Ikora struggling with her inner self. We kind of saw shades of this during the Red War where she was reflecting on Io, but during Forsaken she says she failed the Traveler and Cade.
We should have been there. This is not your fault. This is on the head of Uldren Sov.
I asked Zavala to declare war on the Reef and to affix Uldren Sov's head on the Queen's empty throne. I had lost myself. I did not know myself. I did not destroy myself. I spoke bitter words about Zavala then, but he was right. If we had done nothing, the curse would have never taken the Dreaming City. I wanted to do something, and so I argued we should go into Savathun's snare.
We will mount the head of that son of a bitch on his precious throne. For our fire team. For Cade.
No,
What did you say?
we are not an army. We are not conquerors. We are guardians.
So Ikora says during Forsaken she messed up, agreeing to go in and kill Uldren Sov when in fact this was a part of Savathun's plan, and Ikora feels like this is partly her fault somehow. Later on in the book, there's a section called "We Are All Going to Die." Not sure if this has any relation to what might happen in the Witch Queen story, but thought I'd say this anyway. Ikora says, "Some of us will die and some will go on. And then those who went on will die, but more will go on. And this cycle will continue, and as long as it does, something of us will be a part of it. 3.5 billion years ago, something came to life on Earth, and we are all part of it. It has never died. We are going to die, but not yet." In the end, Ikora responds to Chalco with something scary. Now keep in mind, throughout this book, Ikora relays information about herself. She's also contacting hidden agents who report the information like the Unpaired ghosts and so on. "Something hurt me recently, Chalco. Something Elsie told me about her future. She said I died at Savathun's hands, that I died brutally, and the Zavala in her future told her I died because I was stubborn and self-righteous. I know it was another Zavala, wounded and in pain, but to hear that from a man whom I respect so deeply, does he think I'm too distant? Even him, when we have shared so much." So the stranger told Ikora about a vision where she had died in a different reality, and now Ikora is all scared that this might happen soon. In a next little section, Empress Caiatl writes a letter to Ikora demanding she release all knowledge on the current status of Emperor Calus, her father. We've seen in content like the Presage mission in Season of the Chosen that Caiatl has been hunting down her father, and it seems she is still going after this in The Witch Queen. Calus is wanted for high imperial crimes, including the genocide of the Eclipse people, perversion of the imperial throne for bribes and favors, and the traffic with powers most attained. So as stated, we know she's been looking for Calus for a while, and the new season may actually tie into this. We've seen some Cabal armor and weaponry like this, so perhaps we'll see that very soon. So remember a couple of months back when Stasis was nerfed? Well, in the lore, there's actually a reason for why this happened in the universe. The virulence of Stasis against other Guardians has generally decreased. Guardians have learned to counteract the effects of Stasis with their own light. People were turning against Stasis and didn't like what it was doing in the Crucible, so Stasis made itself nicer, so we'd keep on using it. If Stasis was better than what the Traveler gave us, we wouldn't be able to accept it as just another colorful species of whoop-ass. We might get scared of it, but this way, it's nice and balanced. Stasis is also compared to a virus here. It wants to infect everyone, so it makes new forms, wanting other Guardians to acquire and wield it. Now, as we know, the purpose of a virus is to survive. Although sometimes we may see this as evil, it's really not for that specific virus. It's just trying to do its thing, trying to continue living. The same thing can be tied here to Stasis. Stasis is just trying to survive and changing any way it needs to for Guardians to continue to wield it. They also say maybe Stasis isn't tied to the pyramid ships at all and it's just not evil. Or maybe at certain times the pyramid ship Darkness can chime in and control Stasis. Some interesting theories. A ghost analyzes the stasis crystals and speaks for many paragraphs to say things like this. Stasis ice is produced by the same mechanisms that created the entire universe from nothing. Cold order from hot chaos. The ghost also theorizes about the crystals being Vex related, saying that they might favor domains with useful internal simulation of the world around them. This is all in that short span between their creation and destruction. Tiny swarming minds created and annihilated in the detonation of a grenade. So one of Ikora's hidden agents, the secret spy group who has been relaying all of this information to us, talks about Guardians who turn away from the light. The renegades say, "The traveler is silent, the traveler is still." Meanwhile, the enemy whispers its offers. At least the enemy seems to care. So this was quite interesting when I heard it. Yes, the traveler's always dormant sitting there and pops up when we need it, like when defeating Gaul, but lately the darkness has been speaking to us, giving us new powers, and tempting us to come even closer to who knows what else is gonna happen. The darkness has defeated the traveler in every previous encounter, for the entire lifespan of the universe. The only difference this time is the presence of Guardians. We have been entrusted with the power to make our own choices. Maybe one of those choices is to do what the traveler cannot, to find a balance between the light and the dark. And that's from Ikora Rey. Next, we have some updates on what happened during the Glykon mission. They talk about the flowers and then that voice in the darkness. The overgrowth seen on the Glykon and Drifter's ship required you to link yourself to them if you wanted to pass through. And in doing so, you are reminded that you must use the darkness to fight the darkness. Linking also makes you feel the death and presence of all of those devoured by the ship. Calus was on the Glykon to commune with the darkness through darkness-infused scorn. They say this about what Calus was trying to speak to. An observer. Is there a wielder of darkness as there are wielders of light? One or many? When Oryx called the darkness down into an ogre to speak with him, was this the voice that answered? Mara says there is a distinction between darkness and its chief exponent. A single dominant wielder would suit the ideology of the darkness, as expressed in the Books of Sorrow and the Unveiling Missives. One leader who has either extinguished or subjugated all others, winnowed them down to only the most necessary and effective form. We are many guardians, a complex plurality of light against one dark agency. So over the last couple of seasons, we've been hearing more about this voice in the darkness, the Winnower, the one who rules the darkness like the traveler does the light. Will we learn more about this in Witch Queen? I'm sure we will. Will we see it or hear from it perhaps in the raid? That'd be pretty cool.
I have already learned much by observation. The Taken pursued her here. Taken she once controlled. Taken that now serve a new master. Or, if Savathun is to be believed, their original master. Not her brother, Oryx, but something far older. She fears it. It is the worm gods that the Hive serve. It is the Black Fleet, waiting to strike. It is the entity that commands them all. The voice in the darkness. These creatures are not evil because they wield darkness. They are evil because, like Savathun and Zivu Araf, they are cruel, hateful things with no regard for the lives of others.
So Lord Shaxx is also mentioned in this book. About that confrontation with Marisol where the helmet stayed on, that's further explained. Shaxx going to therapy and how that helped improve the Crucible. Shaxx says, I did notice a change in the tone of the Crucible when I let my natural enthusiasm shine through. Reprimands were not encouraging the improvement I wanted. Even the audience felt sour and sad when I chastened the newcomer. The answer was behavioral therapy, accompanied by a course of nootropics to promote neuroplasticity and fight depression. By the end of the sessions, I was battering straight through the walls of the clinic in my excitement to show the world who I was. I visited city hospitals and helped children learn how to squeeze the illness straight out of their own shadows. I once headbutted a probability kiln so hard that it produced a live Cabal Centurion, which I then arm wrestled into submission. When I brought my new excitement to the Crucible, I delighted my players and my audience. Shaxx then goes on to talk about his past with Mara Sov. He says, have I ever told you about my night of passion with Queen Mara Sov? The passion we shared was pothos, the longing for freedom. This was before Oryx and before my own renewal. I longed for freedom from my duties. She longed for freedom from her doom. The Tempest is a place saturated with the yearning for freedom. It is also concerned with the relationship between master and servant, and when I had finished reciting it, Mara asked me to tell her stories of the once servant who she yearned to meet again as an equal, Seer Ido, the woman I named Tempest. I told her stories of my friendship with Seer Ido and her great bow. Mara told me of the lost distributary and of Seer Ido's quest to assassinate her in revenge for the Diasrim. I challenged the obvious lies in this story. The Seer Ido I knew, Dragon Slayer whose arrows pierced illusion, would never have hesitated to kill, no matter how beautiful her target. And how could Seer, who shrugged off talk of gods as nothing of her concern, have also been a fanatical servant of this Diasrim, who cared only for lost divinity? Inconsistent, and therefore a lie. Mara was delighted by my disbelief. She told me that she would tell me the truth about Seer if I would only take off my helmet, so she could look into the eyes that gazed so often on her beloved. Did you know that Pothos is another name for Asphodelia, the white flower of the awoken, white flower of longing? Ikora, here is a question I long to have answered. Why did you leave the Crucible? Shaxx. So we can see sort of an update on the helmet stayed on situation from a while back. It would seem it's not what some of us believe, and perhaps they were just sharing these stories and talking together about their past and connection to characters like Seer Ido. Anyway, Guardians, that's all we got for today's video. Some very interesting stories, and there's some more we're going to talk about in another video, like Mara destroying a pyramid ship. So definitely subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for that. If you'd like to see some more awesome Destiny lore and entertainment just like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, my name's Evade, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.